I was testing it to make sure I wasn't the last one on. I'm going to leave for a few minutes, but I'll be back.
Okay, sounds good. I was doing the same thing.
Jack, are you there?
Yes. We're
Okay.
live right now.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you could hear me okay.
Yep. We'll
All
do a mic test at like 5 till.
All right.
5 till
And
we
then-
start.
And then I share my desktop, right? When I get to the agenda, or are you doing that?
Anytime you want to share it, you can.
Okay,
You'll have that ability. But we need to let, anytime somebody needs to present. So if you would like me to run my version of the agenda, I can.
okay.
It
Sure,
won't
that's,
have all the stuff you have.
yeah, that's probably okay. Yeah, you go ahead and do it and I'll just watch my agenda as I need to.
We did tell Tony and I think other presenters, they could use their own though, so they could advance their slides. So is that okay, Jack?
Yes, that's the way we'll do it.
Do you like my background?
Yes, it's not even a virtual background. It's a real.
No, yeah, it's real. It just worked out nice. So, okay.
But we
well,
are streaming live on YouTube right now.
Okay, I will mute and then just wait for you or us to get started.
Bonnie? I just heard that 6.4 was on last month's agenda and no one caught it until tonight, that it doesn't need to be on there.
Okay,
We could just go through to 6.4 and just say this was presented last night for info action, and leave it at that, or I can delete it now, or, well, really, I can't. We'd have to do on the consent agenda, request that it be deleted.
okay. So that we've already approved that.
Right.
Okay, I'll just make mention of it. That'll be
Great.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's do a quick test to make sure everybody's comfortable with the setup and how things are going to work. So Bonnie, I can see you. You want to unmute yourself and test your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay.
Very good. Erica, Miss Wolf, could you test?
Check, 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 1, 2.
I can see you and hear you. Mrs. Schutz.
Hello, I'm here. Is that good?
Yep, I can hear you and see you. Mr. Bros.
Hello, I'm here.
Yep, I can hear you, Mr. Bros. Mrs. Gordmaker.
Here I am.
I can see you and hear you, Mrs. Inc.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you and see you. Thank you. Mrs. Albers. We'll come back to Mrs. Albers. Mr. Brown.
I am here.
Can hear you and can see you.
Awesome.
Do not see Mr. Barsonis yet. Dr. Grover.
Yes,
Can
I'm
see
here.
you. I can see you and can hear you. Dr. Dexter.
I am here.
I can hear you. Madison Lane.
I'm here.
We can hear you. Mr. Harden.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. We can see you and hear you. Dr. Palmer.
I'm here.
We can hear you.
Good evening, everyone.
Mrs. Scalberg.
I am here.
We can hear you. Very good. Mr. Phillips.
I am here. Good evening.
We can hear you and see you. Mr. Petch.
Test, 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 test.
We can see and hear Mr. Petch. Going down the list here, the list kind of moves around, so forgive me here. Mrs. Bills. We'll come back to Brittany. Mrs. Albers, can we get you to test your microphone here? Mrs. Albers, can you hear us?
Bonnie?
There you are.
Okay. Can you hear us, Mrs. Albers? Can you hear us, Mrs. Albers?
No, she sent me a text and said she's not able to hear.
All right, we'll come We'll come
Nope.
back to her. Oh,
I'm here. It would help if I unplugged my headphones.
this is why we do a test.
Yeah.
Can you hear
oh
us
my-
now?
Sorry. Yep. I can hear you now.
Okay, very good.
Jack, Brittany is here.
Very good. Thank you, Brittany. Jennifer Worthington.
Yes, I am here.
Very good. Dr. Dahl.
I'm here.
Mr. Matthew Wickman.
Yep, present. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Barsonis is on now. Mr. Barsonis, can you test your microphone for us?
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Very good. I think we can hear and see everyone that will be a part of the meeting so far. So it's 5:30. I think we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shared. It is 5:30 p.m. and I now call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the April 9th, 2020 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those viewing the live stream meeting to know that they can access the agenda in PDF form and the Open Meetings Act on the GIPS website. Dr. Dexter, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Albers,
Present.
Mr. Barsonis,
Present.
Dr. Bros,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Present.
Mrs. Inc.,
Present.
Mrs. Gordemaker,
Present.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Present.
Mrs. Schutz,
Here.
Miss Wolf.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 3 is our mission statement, and Mrs. Gordemaker will be reading that for us this evening.
The mission, every student, every day, a success. In educating students, we teach hearts as well as minds. Student commitments. Within the Grand Island Public Schools, every student will be taught to read, write, and communicate effectively, solve problems, acquire and apply knowledge, and demonstrate mastery through performance to the best of the student's abilities. Every student will be treated with fairness and dignity. Every student will be honored for their unique qualities and backgrounds. Every student will experience a sense of belonging, contribution, and success. And every student will develop responsibility and show respect for others as well as oneself.
Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 4, which is the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have 4.1 minutes from the previous month's meeting, 4.1.1 March 16th, 2020 Board of Education meeting minutes, and 4.1.2 is the March 23rd, 2020 special Board of Education meeting minutes. 4.2 are the claims as submitted. 4.3 are the bid proposals as submitted. 4.4 is the staff adjustments as submitted. 4.5 is the treasurer's report as submitted. 4.6 is policies, and on the policies we have 6.1, 8560 student automobile use on final read. 6.2, 8620 contest for students final read. 6.3, 8630 student volunteers and aides on final read. 4.7 is the surplus property listing. 4.8 is the change order as documented, and 4.9 is the approval of the agenda as submitted. Are there any additions or corrections to the board agenda?
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
I would move that we remove item 6.4, which is the lease agreement with Trigo Dugan Aviation, as we dealt with that last month. And then would move that we approve the agenda as submitted with that deletion.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Brown. Any discussion? Remember to raise your hand on in the participants view if you do have any discussion. Okay, seeing none, Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Present.
Mr. Barsonas,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Present.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatz,
Yes.
Miss Wolf.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will now move into agenda item 5, which is our information items. And first we have 5.1, which is the COVID-19 graduation resolution. And Dr. Palmer is going to present that to us.
Okay, thank you. As you know, many of you know, we've been working through our COVID-19 plans, and we've received lots of guidance from the State Department, the Commissioner, and other experts in the field. And we've received some guidance from Perry Law Firm to address and discuss graduation grading and advancement of grade levels. And they presented a document for us to review and to consider adopting our own resolution to demonstrate, how we are going to actually work through the grading, graduation, and advancement of grade levels. So I'm presenting this to you as an information, and then we'll later ask for you to approve it during our action section. We did go through this document at our L4L committee meeting. We also had other stakeholders involved with cabinet, and during our meetings with parents, we actually utilized their questions to help inform the document as well. So some of the information is here is also in our FAQ that we are sharing with parents. So tonight is just information, and then I'll come back to you and ask for you to approve this during our action section of our meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I think we've all had a chance to read it in advance as Board of Education members. So does anyone have any questions for Dr. Palmer? Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think I see any. So we will move on. I need to get back to my agenda there. Just a second, apologize. There we go. Okay. We will move on to then 5.2, which is the proposal for the VEX robotics elective resources. Mr. Wickman and Mr. Phillips will be presenting.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come and present. This will be an information item for tonight. This purchase for our robotics elective came from our prescribe and reduce process, where we really looked at expanding the elective courses that would supplement our academy pathways and provide opportunities for students to reduce the number of open blocks and study halls that students would be taking part of. So this was a result of that process. We had an active robotics club that would meet after school. So there was already a built-in demand for those courses. And then based on that, looking at the courses for next year, we have over 150 students that signed up for this course. Great demand, great interest from our students. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wickman to talk about the purchase and the future of this class.
So the purchase is specifically the VEX robotics equipment. So microcontrollers, remotes, the programming pieces that go with that, all of the mechanical tools necessary for kids to be competitive. VEX Robotics is a worldwide event or competition. Nebraska actually has a very, very strong robotics program across the state. Grand Island Senior High, as Mr. Phillips said, does have an extracurricular program, but this will allow us to expand those opportunities for kids. So students engaged in football or other sports and other activities now can do that during the classroom. The VEX competition is really unique in that it requires kids to pair up randomly with other schools and other teams to participate. So the list of equipment here is really to put our students in the best foot forward to focus on a STEM elective. So lots of computer science here, programming, math. Kids will have to do the calculations to figure out torque and things like that. So this is the equipment set there. VEX is the main product that we use across the state of Nebraska at this time. And so it's an excellent resource to get kids engaged in building robotics. Hopefully, as we grow the program with the engineering pathway, we'll be looking at maybe participating in the FIRST Robotics, which is a custom design build robot competition. Mr. Phillips.
And with that, we would open up any questions from the board regarding this.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, and we thank you for your presentation tonight. And so this will be an action item on next month's agenda, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 5.3 is the American Red Cross Facilities Agreement, and I believe Mr. Petch is going to present this.
Yeah, we were contacted by this is National Red Cross, if they would allow us to, have a facility use agreement with them. This is something that we had done locally in the past. This is a little bit bigger thing. We did have our attorney, Mr. Steele, take a look at this. He had no changes to it, and so just for information, this month to present that. What we did was we selected and did a survey for 6 buildings that would be utilized or could be utilized at some point. Those buildings would include Senior High, Dodge, Jefferson, Lincoln, Star, and Westridge. We did surveys, so if they wanted to use commons areas or kitchens, that's kind of part of that. We control all of what they would use if we ever did have to open up our facilities for that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'd answer any questions a group might have.
Okay, does any board member have any questions? Mrs. Schutz.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you are a little faint, but we can hear you.
Okay. My only question was, this came about, I assume, just as a proactive thing, just so that we have this in place should a disaster ever occur. Is that the deal?
It is. This one's a little more detailed. In the past, it was a simple sheet with a signature and 6 buildings on it, and that was really for local. This agreement is a actual contract, and it I guess it's a lot better for us in explaining duties and responsibilities laid out real well. And so of course this comes with the push of our obvious situation we're in too with COVID-19. I didn't see any great demand to try to do information and action on this this month. So we'll bring the action next month.
So in the course of doing like normal blood drives and that kind of thing, this doesn't pertain to anything like that. This is just for the big disaster kind of things, right?
Oh, yeah, great question. This is for a major disaster situation. It's not, hey guys, we're gonna want to use your facility for the weekend kind of deal. This would be a long drawn out thing, and you know it has a piece there too if there's FEMA that could come into play or what have you. So, great question.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I don't think I see any raised hands, so we will move on then. 5.4 is the GIPS Foundation 2020 Staff and Board Campaign, and Mrs. Skalberg is going to share some information with us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me address you again this month. I just wanted to bring back to you, last month I was a little unsure about what our regular staff and board campaign would look like. So now we've got some stuff figured out. So I thought I'd bring that back to you. We are going to do a mailing late next week. The campaign's mostly going to be virtual. And the theme of the campaign this year is I give hope, I give GIPS, we are better, stronger together. Dedicated to our staff heroes that have really stepped up and made things happen for kids. Some of the proceeds of the campaign are going to be directed to our Better and Stronger Together emergency fund that we set up a couple of weeks ago. That is something that Mrs. Albers will report on at the later in the agenda. The staff, this is the campaign that we ask staff and board members to give to. It's never ever about how much, but it's always about the participation rate. And we look for 100% participation rate because it just shows our community solidarity, gives us a sense of standing together. So the deadline for the fund drive is going to be May 15th. You will all get something in the mail. It will direct you on how to give virtually if you choose, or you can mail a card in with a check if you would like to. We are right in the midst of designing a new website for the foundation, and it will have all of those landing pages ready to roll as soon as the middle of next week. And so pretty excited about that. Last month, I told you that the challenge gift was from Orv and Mary Qualsett in memory of Mary. And so that has not changed, really even quite more powerful now as really just a shout out to our heroes that are helping our kids. One of the things that is kind of exciting about the campaign is that because we're taking it all virtual, at the beginning, we thought that we might use the Go Big Give platform. We will not use that platform for this campaign because Go Big Give has been moved to a different date, which it's early July 7th. And so this campaign we want to finish out before the end of the year. So we decided with this virtual platform that we would try to involve the community. We always have a community campaign, but now is the time to stand with schools and do wonderful things for kids. And so we are planning to kick off a better, or I give GIPS week, May 14th through 21st. Really kind of that last week of school, kind of a hurrah. And so the community will also be invited to give, and will be able to give on those virtual platforms. And they will also qualify for a t-shirt at the $60 level. We always offer that incentive, and the community will also qualify for that. And I'm going to share my screen so you can kind of see the that t-shirt. And maybe I can't. Nope. Doesn't appear like I can. So I will, I'm
Right
sorry,
now.
but, oh, okay,
Sorry.
now I can? Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is, if you're seeing this, the purple with the little guy, this is the design that will be on the t-shirt, and this is what we have branded the campaign with. And so on a purple shirt, and we're hopeful that not only do we have, 700, 800, 900 staff members running around with those, but also that our community would buy in and be part of this. And let's see here. That's postponed. Our new website launches next week. I'm not sure what I missed. Please ask questions.
I'm not seeing any questions, so you must have hit everything. And we look forward to getting our invitation to give in the mail.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being able to address you tonight.
Sure. Thank you. And love the shirts.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. We will move on to agenda item 5.5, which is Panorama Universal Screener Proposal. And Dr. Dexter will be our presenter.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Hinkle. We have a needs analysis, and we are proposing the purchase of Panorama as a universal screener to monitor positive behavior supports. And we have done research now for the past 3 years on the Panorama universal screener. We started with 4 pilot schools, Walnut, Stolly, Star, and Senior High. And so that pilot has gone well for the last 2 years, and then our social emotional team met for the last 2 years and have put together a draft of our positive supports framework. And all of the research that we have done really stresses the need to have a universal screener, and so to assess social emotional learning. This universal screener addresses the student success measures of increasing the percent of students with a high level of school connectedness and high commitment to learning, and increased percentage of students self-reporting growth mindset, self-efficacy, self-management, and social awareness. This also meets the need of Nebraska Department of Education to have a student, staff, and parent survey. Panorama also includes a playbook, which when a student's identified as needing support in a certain social emotional competency, then the teacher can access a playbook, and it's really supported by teachers across really around the world with just real simple, easy to implement strategies. So it's right there at the teacher's access through Panorama. So that's a key piece of it. And then the data analysis, we would do a fall and a spring survey of students, and we can track improvements. And one of the specific data that we collected at Senior High, teachers identified a need that was kind of across the board, and then started implementing strategies on a daily basis, and they saw a significant increase. So the ability to identify the skill that needs to be supported and then to be able to track it was powerful. And you see the data and research assessed. Social awareness, self-efficacy, sense of belonging, and teacher-student relationships are part of what the survey addresses. We have included district climate team, the positive behavior supports team, the teacher leader coalition, and these groups include cabinet members, teachers, principals, and directors in review of this universal screener. So the impact, it's $48,000 for the assessment. and 4,000 for professional development, and the assessment universal screener tests 3rd through 12th graders. In the source of funding, we come out of the Leadership for Learning budget for a total of 52,000 annual cost. The data from the universal screener would be presented to the board on at least an annual basis to demonstrate growth using the universal screener, and then also to help us identify ways to support social emotional learning through professional development and teaching strategies. So that is the proposal, and it's information tonight and action for May.
Okay, does any board member have a question? So please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you for that presentation, and very excited about that work. Okay, we will move on then to the next, oops, just a minute, sorry. The next information item then is 5.6, our student representative report. Ms. Lane will share with us how things are going in a virtual world.
All right, I want to start off with saying that I'm so excited to be back. I was a bit sad when I thought February was my last meeting, but with the whole transition and everything, I've been trying to make sure I'm getting out of my house. I go on walks, I go on car rides around town, bring my dogs, and I am still going to work, so sorry. I work at USAFE Pharmacy on South Locust, so it's a pretty good job to still be going to. I'm going to start with talking about e-learning. The switch has been interesting for all of us, teachers, students, everyone involved. I've been messaging some of my classmates and my friends and seeing how e-learning has been going for them. And I heard common things amongst everyone. One of them was it is so nice to have some type of routine back in our days, even though it's not our traditional classroom setting. And then with that, almost everyone said that they do like being able to work at our own pace and still completing assignments within a given time frame, but not having to sit through a 90-minute block if you only need 20 minutes to get your assignment done. And we all still have the ability to contact our teachers. They're all doing good with having some type of Zoom office hours, and they're all checking their emails and making sure that they're replying to everyone. And then with this at our own pace, one thing that I heard from a lot of people too, although they're getting their assignments done, they all say that they're lacking a lot of motivation to do it. But I kind of think at this point in the school year, those of us suffering from senioritis, it's kind of hard to avoid the whole lack of a motivation that comes with this time in the school year. And then another huge change that has been affecting a lot of people was how AP classes have changed. The AP College Board changed the format of the AP exams. So instead of being like a 3-hour test with multiple choice and free response questions, it's now only a 45-minute test with 1 to 4 written questions depending on the class. So they also cut out the last 2 months of topics. So all the AP teachers have no new content to cover, but rather all of our Zoom meetings and assignments they've been assigning has been review sessions rather than new content. The first week or two was some new things because they had to wrap up any loose ends that they still needed to cover, but I think almost all the AP classes are done covering new things, and so they're trying to come up with the best way to prepare us all for the new format with so many unknowns because they don't really know what we're going to be taking in May. So that's a big thing. And I think the switch to e-learning came at a good time for the seniors who are college bound at this point, and being able to start building that accountability within ourselves, because when we go to college, we're not going to have mom or dad waking us up and forcing us to go to class. That's something we'll have to do. And I think the e-learning and not having our teachers physically with us is a good way to start building that skill within us. And then my next topic is graduation. And it's pretty obvious that no one's happy, not you guys, not teachers, not the students, about losing our traditional graduation ceremony. I've heard from my friends that I've talked to, what people have posted on Facebook and stuff, that there's a split, and the students are either upset with the alternative, but I think they'd be upset with almost any other alternative. And then the other people who would still obviously prefer our traditional ceremony, but understand that we had to fit so many criteria and avoid so many things, and know that you guys chose what worked best to fit everything. The class officers and I are going to work on a project to bring a little more personal touch into the end of our year. We're going to give all the seniors the opportunity to submit a short little video that will compile into a larger video. And we're either wanting to post that the week leading up to the ceremony and to graduation, just to celebrate the seniors, or even starting the graduation live stream a bit earlier, like optional for people to jump in and watch the video of the seniors saying their goodbyes and thank yous and highlighting any of their favorite moments. And then also then as people are joining the ceremony to get ready, they're being able to hear the words from our seniors. And that's all that I have for you guys today. So.
Well, that was an awesome report, Madison. And I really appreciate how positive you're looking at it, the e-learning, how it's a jump start for the seniors. It's a good attitude to have. And we really do wish things could be different for all of you, but we appreciate everything you're doing as seniors. So does any board member have anything they'd like to share with Ms. Lane at this time? And we're also very happy to have you back with us, and glad that we'll have you at least for one more meeting as well. So thank you. All right, we will move then to 5.7, which is the construction update. Mr. Petch.
Thanks, Mrs. Hinkle. Stadium project has actually been moving pretty well this month. We're going to be doing our mechanical startup with West Stadium. Should be about ready to do punch list first part of May, which is kind of what we'd moved our schedule to. So got to look at, some of the carpet up on the fourth floor. Looked awesome. The finishes are coming through, and it's really, really fantastic looking facility. Precast for the alternate addition on the east side is going to show up next week. And so we'll see a lot more outside activity over on that east side taking place. They've tore all the surface off the track, and so they're working on that piece as well. So it's still a pretty active site. Everyone's spread out and working safe. So just look forward to trying to hit our schedules and keep our fingers crossed that we're able to utilize that facility for our first football game in the fall. And with that, I'll conclude my report, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Petch? Okay, I don't see any. So we will move on to 5.8, which is the superintendent report. Dr. Grover.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a little bit of a report tonight. So first, I'll just start with a COVID-19 response update, and giving just tremendous thanks to our pandemic team. They continue to meet daily. We're just taking the opportunity to monitor the state of affairs and make the necessary adjustments to our management as well as our messaging, so that we can continue to be responsive to the needs of the students, the staff, as well as the community. I mean, it's hard to believe that our students have actually been out of the building since March the 5th. And we realized that we took these steps to help prevent the spread of the virus. And as Madison mentioned, there are still a lot of folks that are having to go to work. And so I think first off, just thank you to our healthcare workers who are putting their lives on the line for us every day. And so with that being said, we have elevated our messaging around safety. So it's important for us to continue to do our part and continue to work with our students and helping them understand, as well as our families, the ways that we can help prevent the spread of the virus. And so just echoing, the messages to stay home and to stay healthy, and just making all those necessary steps of social distancing and making sure that we're staying at home, not going to our friends' houses, not letting friends come over as hard as it is, and just making sure that we're doing the necessary hand washing. And now just we're having to really just stress wearing facial coverings at all, wearing facial coverings if at all possible when we go outside. And so you will continue to hear us reinforcing our safety messages to support our entire community. We do have 4 very specific priorities to keep GIPS learning and thriving. So I'm just going to give you a quick update. And Madison gave a wonderful update on e-learning. So thank you for sharing the student experiences with us. And so first of all, we will have a video coming out on Monday. Dr. Palmer will be sharing some clarifying expectations, as well as sharing some additional resources with our families, just reinforcing the expectation of daily touch points from our teachers. Some of them will be virtual, helping our parents to understand scheduling as well as grades, and to know that our teachers are still teaching as they continue to be partners with us at home. One of the things that we certainly want to elevate in our communication is that we are counting on our students to learn the new content while we are in the e-learning environment. Our staff, just a remarkable job. We had the opportunity to be a part of the principals meetings today for them to share what they are seeing with their campuses on e-learning. And one of the things that we definitely are taking note of, and this came across in our parent advisory council meeting, is just to what degree are we able to determine the engagement of our students. And so many of the campuses, they have different ways of doing it, but basically they are tracking the student engagement in the online environment. And so a very great example came from Dodge Elementary School. And so they're looking for a few things. Number one is the student assessing the learning. Are they completing the work? Have they logged in? If they've not logged in, then why? And I think that is so important. One of our high school academy principals, he shared just, a very moving story with us because they are doing the tracking. They noticed a student who had not logged in, not participated. And what they found out is that the student is actually working. And right now, the parents are not able to work, and they're the only ones bringing in income to the house. So this just really shows just, the power just in our purpose and who we are. And I just want to commend our staff members for understanding how flexible we need to be with the students and still looking for ways for them to be able to meet the expectations that we have. As far as our meal distribution is concerned, we started this on March the 17th. I think we started out with serving just a little over 800 meals. Today, we served over 3,700 meals. And so to date, if we kind of add it all up, we have served 59,513 meals to our families. I think this really helps us to know that while it's challenging, that food is essential for our families. And just want to thank you to the child nutrition staff as they continue to navigate these processes, and as we continue to try to add additional layers of safety for their team. In terms of mental health, Dr. Dexter has worked with our social workers to establish a virtual crisis team so that we can be available for our students. The Facebook page that they have set up for student support services is just remarkable. They have a great deal of resources for our families, any type of tip line, hotlines, or just strategies that they can use at home. One of the things that we want to roll out probably later next week, we will be doing a Panorama Survey to try to gauge additional supports for our students. So we're going to be asking our parents to respond to a range of questions. It shouldn't take long. It's probably about 10 or so questions but it just gives us some insight into their food needs, any other needs, their devices, connectivity, just to make sure that we are keeping our students engaged. And so speaking of devices and connectivity, access and equity is one of our priorities as well. And just kudos to Mr. Corey Gearhart and his team. And along with Dr. Dahl, they have worked to identify students who needed hotspots. I think they're calling them jetpacks now. They want me to use the correct language, but basically Wi-Fi, just whatever it takes for them to have internet connectivity. And we were already very fortunate to be a one-to-one district, but they have to have the internet access in order to be able to properly use the devices. And so we have identified 104 households that needed our support with these hotspots, jetpacks, and that will be serving 130 students. And so thank you so much to the Board of Education for giving us the authority and moreover having the expectations that we reach all of our students. So in other news outside of COVID-19, we are still encouraging all of our families to complete the census. You can find information online on our social media pages. It's very easy to do, and that's so important. It's times like these that we really need those resources in our community. So just a reminder that everyone counts. Complete your census. Online registration is also going to, so you can go to our website and go ahead and get registered for the next school year. And maybe just some excellent news. I'd like to give an update on the Memorial Stadium scoreboard. As you know, at the March board meeting, you approved the purchase of a digital scoreboard for the Memorial Stadium. In the motion, it included the caveat that all the sponsor spots needed to be filled before the order was placed. So last Friday, Jennifer Worthington, Cindy Wells, and Tracy Skalberg, they all been working together for quite some time here, and they made it happen. And we were able to give Mr. Harden the green light, and so he ordered the scoreboard. So we're very excited about that. We've directed Daktronics to make sure that it is here for the first football game in August. We still have our sights on that. And I do want to acknowledge our advertising sponsors. I think it's worth acknowledging, especially during these times. Just as a reminder, we had 3 sponsorship levels that were developed. We had our anchor partners who've committed to $10,000 per year for 5 years. We have our founding partners who've committed to $5,000 per year for 5 years. And we have our premier partners who committed to $2,500 per year for 5 years. So drum roll, I guess, is okay for this. So our anchor partners are CHI St. Francis, Credit Management, Home Federal Bank, and Tom Dinsdale Automotive. Our founding partners are Central Nebraska Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Eric and Janine Wright from Berkshire Hathaway, Equitable Bank, Grand Island Physical Therapy, Grand Island Regional Medical Center, and Pinnacle Bank. Our premier partners are Kelly Family Dentistry, Pepsi, Stewart Museum, Wayne State College, and our Islander Athletic Booster Club. And I do want to just give a special shout out to our Islander Athletic Booster Club, who stepped up to stand in the gap for our local businesses. We had a few spots left, and they felt like it was very important to not let this COVID-19 slow us down. And while it has been a disruption, they were determined not to let it destroy our efforts, knowing the pride that we will all experience when we open the new stadium. And so they are willing, if and when our other businesses are wanting to come back and take the spots that they have, they will certainly afford them their opportunity. So we appreciate them standing in the gap for our local businesses. I think it's another way to really show the unity within our community. So as I conclude my report for tonight, I just want to thank the Board of Education for just being such a great leaders and helping us to truly live out our mission. Our parents are just super amazing, just partnering with us And we ask that you please continue to utilize the GIPS Let's Talk service and watch for messaging from our district as we have quite a bit of communication coming out. So to everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected. And remember, we are better and stronger together. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Grover. You did have a lot packed in there, but a lot of good things, and we appreciate that. And again, the Board of Education, I'm sure if others want to join in, they can, but thank you for your leadership and to all of the pandemic leadership team and everyone else working to make sure that we keep moving and educating kids. And with regards to the meals, it's just amazing what that staff, the child nutrition services are doing. And, you know, we were just talking about it earlier, the weather. We went from Tuesday getting sunburned and hot to last Thursday, there was ice on people's backs, to today we were gone with the wind. And, but everybody's just doing a great job and making it work no matter what. So anybody have any other comments or questions for Dr. Grover? Mr. Barsanis?
I just want to say, well, thank you for the leadership. Thank you to all that have been working on this, and just go back to nutrition. Thank you all. I've been able to help here and there, and you see all the families that are coming very grateful. They're very grateful to the district, and the weather being 18 degrees, you had brothers and sisters coming to get their meals in 18 weather and sunny weather, and the staff was always there, just great, very gracious, very helpful. So thank you all for making a difference.
Mrs. Albers.
I was on a phone call earlier this week with other schools in our area, not our district, but outside of our district. And they were talking about, you know, what they needed to do. And like, they just hadn't, I was just so impressed how much Grand Island was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. Just kudos to everyone because we were way ahead of it. And I just think a lot of other districts, and I know smaller districts maybe don't have the infrastructure or the staff, but I just was so proud to be from GIPS and just so impressed with what everybody was able to accomplish. So just thank you to everyone involved.
Dr. Brose.
I just want to echo everything that everybody has already said, but on, I think it was yesterday at noon for the parent meeting, I want to applaud Tony Palmer and her presentation about the things that are going on to keep e-learning in the front of everybody's mind. The PLCs are meeting, the staffs are meeting, the teams are meeting, people are talking with each other about things that need to be done. It's exciting to hear how our staff has really become quite innovative in an area where they've never had any real instruction on how to do this. And the fact that things are getting done and they're getting done well. So Dr. Palmer, thank you for that presentation. And thank you for enlightening us in terms of what's really happening out there, in addition to what we're hearing from our grandkids and children. It was pretty awe-inspiring. So thank you again.
Okay, I don't think I see anyone else. Just one other comment. Both Ms. Lane and Dr. Grover, in your comments, you mentioned how teachers are reaching out to kids, being aware of kids. And I think that's the important part, that even though we're not physically together, we can still be present. And that's very important. So thank you, everyone. And way to go, Mrs. Worthington and Mrs. Skalberg and Mrs. Wells. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. We will move on to, oops, I'm either got it really, action items. And the first one is 6.1, which is the COVID-19 graduation resolution. And Dr. Palmer presented this to us earlier. I will go ahead and read this, and then when I'm done, I'll need the motion and the second. So Grand Island Public Schools Resolution 20200409.01, graduation under COVID-19. Whereas due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the district has shifted student learning from the physical classroom to a distance learning setting. And whereas, as a result of this shift in student learning, the board recognizes that certain aspects of student learning have been disrupted and that certain board policies and procedures may need to be suspended or modified, including grading, credits, and the like. And whereas the board desires to allow eligible students in their final year in the district, including seniors, to graduate and receive a diploma at the end of 2019-2020 school year. Now, therefore, it be resolved that notwithstanding any policy, regulation, protocol, practice, or directive to the contrary, the board hereby finds, determines, delegates, and authorizes as follows. Number one, for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year, the board suspends all graduation and curriculum-related policies, except for those policies that the superintendent and board president jointly determine need to remain in effect. Number two, the superintendent shall determine which students would have been eligible or on track for graduation immediately prior to the COVID-19 temporary shutdown. Number three, the superintendent shall implement requirements such as the continued completion of coursework to be in effect during the remainder of the 2020 spring semester for students who are eligible or on track to graduate. It is the board's intent to require students in their final year to continue learning during the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year. If said students satisfy such requirements during the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year, then the board hereby authorizes the superintendent and board president to issue a diploma to the said student, so that the said students will graduate and receive a diploma at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Number four, the superintendent is hereby directed to identify students in their final year in the district who are neither eligible nor on track to graduate at the end of 2019-2020 school year, and determine what requirements, if any, or supports, if any, will be in place for those students to become eligible or on track for graduation at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. At the end of the 2019-2020 school year, the superintendent shall then determine whether any of these students have satisfied said requirements, and if so, along with the board president, issue a diploma for such students in order for them to graduate and receive a diploma at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Number five, for all students, including those not in their final year in the district, the superintendent shall develop a grading procedure to be implemented for the spring 2020 semester. The superintendent is encouraged to consult with key stakeholder groups to identify the grading procedures that will be fair, reasonable, in light of the circumstances, and in the best interests of the district. The superintendent's grading procedure shall be final, and the board will not hear any appeals over the superintendent's grading procedure or any grades issued under the superintendent's grading procedure. Number six, for those students who are not in the final year in the district, the superintendent shall develop a plan to determine how students will progress or not to the next grade level or advanced courses next year, and what resources or supports may be made available for those students who are not or will not be prepared to progress to the next grade level or advanced courses next year. It is the board's intention to advance students to the next grade level next year, but at the same time, the board does not want students unprepared for next year's curriculum. Number seven, the board recognizes the fluid and unprecedented circumstances currently faced by students, parents, and staff members, and hereby adopts this resolution in order to be proactive and prepared to respond to the evolving events without further delay. As a result, by delegating various responsibilities and authority to the superintendent and board president, all actions or inactions taken by the superintendent and board president pursuant to this resolution shall be final, ratified in full by the board, and need not be formally approved by the board at a later date. And number eight, the board hereby ratifies all curriculum-related decisions implemented or enacted to date. So, do I have a motion to accept? Anyone would like to raise their hand? Dr. Bros.
I move that we pass and adopt resolution 202004009.01.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, okay, second, Mr. Barsonis. Any questions or discussion? Mrs. Albers, did you have a question?
Unmute.
Okay.
No, I don't. I lost my screen for a second, so I'm
No
glad.
problem.
Yeah, I'm glad I was muted.
All right, no problem. Okay, Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Barsonis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordemaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
motion passed.
All right, thank you. Now we will go on to 6.2, the staffing plan for 2020 and 2021. Mr. Stelk.
Good evening. As you recall, last month we presented to you our recommended staffing plan for the 2020-2021 school year. And I do want to say, at that time we felt that this was a very reasonable plan that was necessary for us to continue to move the district forward. What was unknown at that particular time was the extent of the disruption to our country and to our economy and to our school district that this pandemic was going to cause. As time has progressed, it has only become more clear to us that the effects of the pandemic are going to be felt for some time to come, and in all expectation, it will affect some of our revenue streams probably going forward. So being a proactive school district like we are rather than reactive, we felt that we really needed to go back to that staffing plan and take a look at every single item and really, ask ourselves, is it absolutely critical and absolutely necessary? Or is there a way that we could possibly, trim back a little bit? And I just want to assure the board that the request that we took to you in March, was appropriate and was something we felt very strongly about. But we just find ourselves in such a situation, looking at the current situation, that we felt we needed to make some adjustments. So I'll be referencing the executive summary that is attached to the agenda, and I'll try to explain where we've changed and where we haven't changed from the March presentation. Starting with the Early Learning Center, that has not changed. That is a grant that we have written from the Nebraska Department of Education Early Childhood Expansion Grant. If that is approved, we'll move forward with filling those positions. If not approved, then of course we will not. So there's no general fund exposure there. We do have some changes at the elementary level. Basically what we are bringing forward tonight is that any additional classrooms that are sections that we need to add, we will add by moving staff around. In other words, we will look for other grade levels, other buildings where we could potentially reduce a section to add a section at a school that needs one, where we don't create, a situation that the class size is totally unmanageable. So we will do more shifting internally through any additional needs that we become aware of. So the only thing that we're really asking then for approval at the elementary level is a position at Star Elementary School, position that we are calling a student success liaison, which would be paid entirely out of title funds to support students with academic needs there at Star. So there would be no additional general fund expense at the elementary level with this proposal. In fact, with some of the sections that we've been able to recapture, we're projecting a decrease to the general fund impact. At the middle school, we are not requesting any additional funds or positions for staffing at the middle school level. At the academies of Grand Island Senior High, we did remove some core classroom positions. There will be an impact on some class sizes, so we do not believe that there will be any class sizes that are unmanageable or that are excessive. We do Also recognize that we will probably not be able to maintain the level of purity between the academies that we would desire and hope for, but certainly we believe we can function very well without those additional positions. So from a certified standpoint, we are recommending the addition of 2 positions that would be paid for from the Gear Up grant. And these would be 2 positions that would support social and emotional learning with the Gear Up program, students in the Gear Up program. So those 2 positions remain. They have 0 impact on the general fund. We do have 1 FTE classified for an additional custodian. As you all know, we've got lots of neat and exciting things going on at Grand Island Senior High School, and particularly with the addition and the opening of new Memorial Stadium. So there is additional square footage there that does need to be maintained. We are covering the cost of this position with a permanent reduction to the Buildings and Grounds budget authority. So there's no additional general fund expense with this request. We did keep all of these special education requests in the plan that was presented to you. Our special education staffing is really, determined by some formulas that are used based upon student needs, IEP requirements, caseload analysis, those types of things. So it's definitely a more of a scientific approach to staffing needs than it is a dartboard approach. So we do want to keep those special ed positions in the plan for your consideration and possible approval tonight. That includes an additional resource position at the elementary level, an SECL coach at for the freshman academy at Grand Island Senior High School. We have students that are matriculating into secondary in our deaf and hard of hearing program, while we still maintain students at the elementary level in that program. So we need an additional FTE there. The occupational therapist position would be an FTE that would allow us to discontinue a third-party contract. So that would actually be some cost savings, because it's always cheaper to hire than to pay through a third-party contract. And then, of course, an additional school psychologist based upon caseload requirements there. So as most of you, I think, are aware, with special education positions, we do get reimbursed approximately 50% a year in arrears from the federal government. So there is some general fund exposure to these positions if approved. Then going on to other departmental supports programs in the Buildings and Grounds Department. As we visited with you last March, we are keeping the reclassification of our warehouse coordinator to include district-wide custodial supervision. Again, we feel that this position can bring a lot of value by providing a more focused and consistent approach to providing guidance and direction to our custodial staff, setting standards. And, one of the things with the situation we're currently going through with the pandemic, I think, we're probably going to be living with the virus in some form for the foreseeable future, it sounds like. And that will only serve to increase the focus and attention we need to place on cleaning and sanitizing procedures. So this position will become even more important probably than we thought it was last March when we visited with you about it. And if we approve this position, then of course we will need to provide 1 additional FTE as a warehouse technician to assume some of those day-to-day warehouse responsibilities that are currently being handled by our warehouse coordinator. Again, there's no general fund impact to this position because of a permanent budgetary reduction in the Buildings and Grounds budget. We are asking to increase our registered dietitian from a 10-month to a 12-month position. And this is consistent with the request that we brought forward in March. We'd like to keep that in there. Likewise, with information technology, we are continuing to request the increase for 2 technology assistants at the middle school to full 12-month positions to assist with summer IT needs. We've made some changes in the request for Leading for Learning. Oh, and I should mention on the information technology, again, that's a 0 general fund impact because of a permanent reduction in budgetary authority for the IT department. Leading for Learning, we've removed most or some of the requests there. We still would like to request the ability to increase our curriculum coordinators from 187-day teacher contracts and including then some additional summer hours that we've been paying just on an as work basis, and to make these positions 260-day contracts. This is being funded by a permanent reduction to the L4L budget, so there's no general fund expense there. We would like to increase our classified family and community outreach liaison from a 9 to a 12-month position. This would be paid entirely by Title I funds. So none of these requests from our Leading for Learning department would have a general fund impact. So basically, as you can see then under the summary, not including, and there's a contingency there of 2 FTEs. We always have a couple of FTEs in the contingency fund just to address any future currently unknown needs, so we have the authority to react quickly if necessary. This oftentimes occurs, say, right at the beginning of a school year, where all of a sudden we have an enrollment increase somewhere and we know we need to add a teacher. So we do have these positions, left these 2 positions in the contingency fund. But as you look at the total impact of this staffing request, not counting the contingency fund request, it would have a negative almost $30,000 impact on the general fund. Everything else that's in here would be funded by other sources. So the reason that we've cut again, so significantly is just trying to be proactive in anticipation of what looks to be a very challenging fiscal environment for the next couple of years. The last thing we want to do is add positions this year and be faced with cutting or reducing them a year later. So that would be the revised staffing plan. I would certainly be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, does any Board of Education member have any questions? Mr. Barsanis.
I make a recommendation to approve the 2020-2021 staffing plan as presented.
All right, is there a second? Ms. Wolf.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute off. Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, I don't see any. Dr. Dexter, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers?
Yes.
Mr. Barsanis?
Yes.
Dr. Brose?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Inc?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, 6.3 is the Veterans Memorial Wall Project criteria, which we heard about in our March meeting. And Mrs. Skalberg, do you have any other additional comments to share with us?
No. Just that, the reason that we're bringing this to you, and if you can scroll down here on the screen, is that the facility is going to be in something that you own. You own the stadium, the East Stadium. And so we just want to, these are the criteria that we're using to put veterans who have fallen veterans from Hall County onto the memorial wall underneath East Stadium. And we want to make sure that you're comfortable with this, because it's something that's going to be up for a long time.
Okay, thank you. Does a board member, do any board members have questions? Mr. Barsanis.
I make the recommendation to approve the list of criteria being considered for inclusion on the Veterans Memorial Wall proposed on the interior of the East Stadium as presented.
Thank you. And is there a second? Mr. Brown.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Does not look like it. Mr. Barsanis, did you have a discussion, or did you just not put your hand down? Thank you. Dr. Dexter, will you please do the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers?
Yes.
Mr. Larsenis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. We removed 6.4 from this agenda earlier, so we will move to 6.5, which is the City of Grand Island Public Utility Easement. Mr. Petch, anything that you need to remind us about before we vote?
Nope. Everything's still current. Just need a okay to go.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Petch or want to make a motion? Mr. Brown.
I would move to approve the City of Grand Island's public utility easement as presented.
And Mrs. Wolf.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Larsenis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. 6.6 is the proposal funds for the middle school math resource adoption. And Mrs. Gannon and Mrs. Beeman presented this last month. Anything that you would like to remind us about before we vote?
Thank you, President Hinkle. Good evening. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to lay out the proposal for the middle school math resources at the March Board of Education meeting. The proposal requests to purchase Origo stepping stones for sixth grade and CPM for grades 7 and 8. The proposal will not exceed $259,000 allocated in the L4L budget. And I wondered if you had any additional questions.
Mr. Brown, do you have a question or did you want to make a motion?
Sure, I can make the motion. I would move to approve the funds for the middle school math resource adoption as presented.
And Mr. Larsenis.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Okay. Since we're here, just making sure I don't miss anybody's. Okay. Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Larsenis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
and motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Then 6.7 is the CKLA Core Knowledge Language Arts Resource Adoption. And again, Mrs. Gannon and Mrs. Bills presented this last month. Anything that you want to remind us about?
Good evening, President Hinkle and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity at the March board meeting to provide you with information about our process for the recommendation for the CKLA resource adoption. Just as a reminder, that skills adoption would be for grades K2 with the purchase not to exceed $234,495 allocated from the L4L resource adoption budget.
Okay. Mr. Larsenis.
I make a recommendation to approve the funds for the PK through second CKLA, if I can say it right, resource adoption as presented. Thank you.
And is there a second? I saw somebody's. Mr. Brown.
Me. Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? No. Okay, Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Barsanis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to 6.8, which is the adoption of the new Nebraska Social Studies Standards. Again, Mrs. Bills.
Good evening. Thank you again for that opportunity to speak with you about our recommendation to adopt the 2019 Nebraska Social Studies Standards and the process that we plan to go through in implementing those standards and adopting instructional resources.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Bills? Okay. Does anyone like to make a motion? Mr. Barsanis.
I make the recommendation to adopt the new Nebraska Social Studies Standards presented.
And is there a second? I admit, wow, a lot of them. Mrs. Albers.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? No. That's just as difficult as seeing your lights. Miss or Dr. Dexter, will you please do the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Barsanis,
Yes.
Dr. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordermaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
motion passed.
All right, thank you. We got through the action items. The agenda item number 7 is committee reports, and we will start with the Finance and Facilities Committee, and Mr. Brown will give us an update.
Thank you. I'll be reporting from the minutes from, well, it seems like a year ago, but it wasn't. It was March 31st. Seems like a lot of things have changed. As I was reading through these notes, it's like a lot of these don't even apply anymore. Things have changed so much from when we first met. We did review a couple of flooring projects. We also got an update from Nutrition Services and IT, both of which have all changed as far as the number of meals we've served and whatnot. Again, that staff has done a wonderful job. The IT department, which I only can imagine that they are have pulled all their hair out and have now served, not only online classes and whatnot, but at the time we were looking at 80 hotspots, and with the update we had earlier, we were more like 105. So fantastic job to all those staffs, really serving our kids and our families. The robotics program we heard about earlier, as well as the American Cross facility agreement. We did get an update on the auditorium sound systems throughout the districts at middle school level and the high school, and looking at maybe bringing a little parity and common use of the equipment there. We did talk about a little change order at the Memorial Stadium. With that, I would conclude my report, and we would hope to be, doubt we'll be meeting in person, but we'll be meeting on May 5th at 7:30. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you. Next up is 7.2, which is the Leading for Learning Committee, and Mrs. Gordermaker will be doing the report.
Okay, we had a meeting on Tuesday and we talked about special education. Mrs. Engel gave us an update on what's going on with IEPs. We have 1,639 IEPs right now in the district. And so the special educators are kind of working through the different issues going on with that. And they're able to do some of the tele stuff with speech and physical and OT type of stuff. And then they're looking at putting together a professional learning plan for the paras. If you have any questions about special ed, please refer them to Mrs. Engel. Then we heard an update from Mrs. Gannon about the continuous academic e-learning plan. So it kind of went over the different roles and responsibilities of what the teachers are doing at this time. And we kind of had a question about, you know, some of the teachers have a little bit of a different time frame that they want to meet with the kids, like 4 to 5:30 in the afternoons, and you know that's probably not the greatest, but they're working through that. And then different things with the AP, and Miss Lane kind of talked about that, so that was a good update. Dr. Dahl presented a spreadsheet that he has been making about students that are credit deficient. So that was super interesting and a great tool that he gave to us. And then Mr. Phillips also talked about the robotics elective learning equipment. And Dr. Palmer talked about what's going on with summer school. And obviously summer school is probably going to look fairly different this year. And so how they're kind of working through that. We talked about the graduation resolution document that we looked at earlier. And Dr. Palmer shared the Gear Up newsletter. So that concludes my report. Our next meeting is May 1st at 8:15 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. 7.3 is the Personnel Committee, and Dr. Brose will be the reporter.
There we go.
So, okay.
I was having trouble getting unmuted. Our committee met on April 2nd, and we learned that there was supposed to have been a call on March 16th to discuss the progress to date of the staffing study being done by DMJ. That was rescheduled for the next day, April 3rd, so I'm sure we'll hear about that at our next personnel meeting. Employee Assistance Program contract is up for renewal. The amount of utilization from our staff from 5 years ago has gone up from 5% to a projected increase to 12% for the current year. And as a result, Wholeness Healing has submitted a renewal notice that will increase the per employee charge from $21 to $28. The contract will continue to provide employees with 6 free sessions per year. And we asked that perhaps we were able to increase the number of enhancements, so there will also be 6 free wellness sessions included with that, and that will be presented to the board as an information item in May. We looked at the revised staffing plan, which we approved this evening. Mr. Stelk reviewed the guidelines that will be shared with staff and administrators to ensure that all evaluations are completed as required for the 2019-2020 school year. To date, we've received 77 certified retirements and resignations. We have issued 42 probationary contracts, and we have 3 requests finding suitable that occurs to determine if the position needs to be filled immediately or if that can wait until students return to school. Human Resources is currently recruiting to fill the following vacancies: elementary tech assistants, Gear Up administrative assistant, and IT technicians and custodians. We are screening candidates and interviews for the elementary principals positions at Dodge and Gates. Those have been the screenings have been completed and the interviews are being scheduled. Dr. Allison Bailey has accepted the Gear Up director position. Will start approximately June 1st. We are currently posting and advertising for the Teammates director, and that position will close on April 24th. Ashley Tomjack has been hired as the Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Learning. Curriculum coordinator for science, we continue to recruit for this position, and we continue to recruit for the executive assistant to the superintendent. Staff adjustments were reviewed and accepted as presented, and our next meeting is May 7th. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to 7.4, which is the policy committee, and Mrs. Albers is the reporter.
Hi, everybody. We met on Tuesday, April 7th at 4 o'clock. We reviewed a lot of policies. I'm not going to go into every single one of them, but 4460 was about expense reimbursement, and they're going to go to using kind of a per diem, depending on how your travel lines up with your schedule for the day. Also, 9310 fundraising activities. Dr. Dexter worked with the GIPS Foundation and Jennifer Worthington, and they're going to go with Donors Choose as the designated platform to receive donations into GIPS. Also, policy 5230, emergency plan, 5232, emergency closing, 8513, communicable disease control, and 8513.1 guidelines for 8513, as you might imagine, had some edits because of the adding a pandemic plan. And so those were just some minor edits, and then we approved all of those. And then policies to be worked on, LB 390, MOUs for SROs, online learning, rental agreement, and donations of artwork. Put to the side for a while is 8660 field trips and 6214 abuse of students by staff. Can't do much with that until the unicameral gets back in session. And our next meeting is May 11th at 4:30.
Okay, thank you very much. 7.5 is the Public Relations and Partnership Development Committee, and Mr. Barsonis is going to report.
And I'm gonna ditto what Mr. Brown said. Most of the stuff we have already covered. We think it doesn't apply, or we've updated it. So this is the summary of our minutes. We met. I'm gonna report from two minutes. The first one is March 20th, and we had gotten started with first time story time live with Mrs. Hinkle, and we've been reading ever since at 7 p.m. The support that's we have gotten from the community, thankful for the meals. We talked about the theme of better and stronger together, and obviously really has fits what we're headed to and what we're doing. We got an update on the census since we can't meet anymore live. The district continues to send information about the importance of registering. We talked about now going and using Zoom for our meetings, and here we are. We have about Donors Choose, and we move on to our next meeting that was April 3rd. And we had an update on the governor's comments about being closed until May 31st. Back then, continue to send communication out to the families and students. We got an update on the scoreboard you heard today with the moving graduation to be virtually, and we've had parent meetings with that as well. And then we continued the information, spreading the information and pushing information on what we need to do through all the channels that we have available. So with that, I conclude both reports, and we'll meet again May 8th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yes, our communications team has been doing a lot of work lately, and we appreciate that. 7.6 is the Grand Island Public Schools Foundation report, and Mrs. Albers is the reporter.
The foundation is firming up scholarships for the class of 2020. This year, the foundation offered 160 scholarships for a total of $539,808. Obviously, they can't have an in-person reception. That was canceled. So we will be meeting in April. Ordinarily, they canceled the meeting in April, but we are going to meet next week. And the online event will give away 61 scholarships totaling $45,150. This corporate sponsor is Home Federal, and Tracy invites us all to join them. At their March 18th meeting, the foundation board voted to initiate the Better and Stronger Together Emergency Fund. The foundation seeded this fund with $10,000 from their unrestricted cash. And Mrs. Skalberg is working closely with the district and social workers to distribute these dollars for emergency needs related to the COVID-19 crisis. And this fund is open for the community and other funders to contribute. You can find it online at gipsfoundation.org. Tracy talked a lot about the kickoff for the annual campaign, Added Up to Opportunity. I give hope, I give GIPS, we are better, stronger together. Some of these proceeds will be designated to the emergency fund. She does ask that 100% of the board members support. And then Go Big Give was postponed to July. The foundation will release nomination forms for the 2020 Teacher, Staff, Member, and Administrator of the Year. The forms will be available online with a May 21st deadline, and then awards will be announced in August. And corporate sponsor is First National Bank.
Okay, thank you very much. 7.7 is the GNSA Legislative Committee report. Mr. Harden.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. Short report. Obviously, the unicameral's not meeting due to COVID-19, so we do continue to meet weekly as GNSA Legislative Committee. There is always talk about bills still being live and something that they want to talk about when reality of the the revenue stream or lack thereof in the state really hits. I think that talk will go away, but we're continuing to monitor. No activity to report on, but that's the current state of things.
All right, thank you. The next one is 7.8, the NASB monthly update, and it's attached there for all the board members to read. A lot of it referred to the COVID-19 response and different resources, and then it also just goes through a checklist of things that we should be doing, which we are. So, all right, that's it for the reports, and so we will now move to number 8, which is the executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations and superintendent's evaluation, because it is in the best interest of the public to discuss the matters in closed session. Dr. Brose.
I will make that motion, but before I do, I want to draw everybody's attention to an editorial, the staff editorial in the newspaper recently. And it said, during this time of anxiety and insecurity created by coronavirus concern, it is good to have our public schools providing a steady hand of leadership to keep us safe and recognize that this time of social distancing will end sooner if we make certain sacrifices now. And I just thought that was important to draw everybody's attention to that if you missed it in the paper. And with that, I will move that we convene to executive sessions for the purpose of discussing negotiations in the superintendent's contract.
And Ms. Wolf.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers?
Yes.
Mr. Barsonas?
Yes.
Dr. Brose?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Inc?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And we will leave this meeting and join the executive session. Thank you. Okay, I'm just looking to see if we've got all the board members back. 1, 2. Waiting for just a few. And Terry, you're in a new location. Okay.
That's the one that got away, Terry.
It's a whale.
I feel like I should be singing all by myself.
Terry, you need to take a picture of yourself like sitting at your desk like this. And then you could like get up and leave and we'd never know.
That's an idea.
7.
That's
I don't. Do we have everybody? It looks like we do, right? Okay. So we are to agenda item number 9, reconvene from executive session. I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Brown, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Barsonis. Dr. Dexter, will you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Albers,
Yes.
Mr. Barsonis,
Yes.
Dr. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Inc.,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordemaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Schutz,
Yes.
and Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. Agenda item 10 is approval of any action deemed necessary as a result of the executive session, and there is no approval of anything needed. So we will move to agenda item 11, which is the notification of upcoming board meetings. And our next board meeting will be May 14th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. And as of right now, I would assume that it will be another virtual meeting. We do also have a board retreat coming up. More information will be coming out about that. It's been greatly reduced and changed, so you'll get more information. Number 12 is our adjournment, and I would like to thank everyone for your time tonight, and we'll talk soon. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Bonnie.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Jack.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Yes, happy Easter. Have a good weekend.
My dad's doing drive-by ham. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Nice work.